He has 5 grandchildren and more than enough money to do whatever he wants for the rest of his life. At 69, he is old enough to be Osama bin Laden's father. He is Donald Rumsfeld, the Secretary of Defense. But a more accurate title might be Secretary of War, because he is the man in charge of planning and executing the battle against terrorism, the man in charge of getting bin Laden, dead or alive. And Rumsfeld makes no bones about which way he wants it.
Do you care whether Osama bin Laden is captured dead or alive?
Well, I don't know if it's politically correct to say you'd prefer the former, but I guess I'd prefer the former myself, but I don't think we have much choice in it anyway.
But you just soon see him dead.
Oh, my goodness gracious, yes. After what he's done, you bet your life.
It is undoubtedly the biggest manhunt in history in a country that is geographically and culturally as far away from the United States as you can get. Flying from Uzbekistan into Pakistan on a C-17, Rumsfeld got a brief look at Afghanistan. And here's what he saw: a lunar landscape with an endless number of potential hiding places for bin Laden.
He could end up hiding in a tunnel or a cave for another 1.5 to 2 years, for all I know. We're working the caves and the tunnels. We may hit one that he's in, we may not hit one that he's in. But we don't have any control over that.
When you work those caves and tunnels, and you put a bomb right in the mouth of the cave, can you assume...
That's a bad day for those folks in there.
Can you assume that everything in that cave is dead or destroyed?
Absolutely not. They've got a lot of corners, 90-degree corners, and turns and levels, and they're a maze inside of there.
So how are you going to know?
You may not. Life's not perfect.
The Soviet Union spent the better part of a decade trying to dig the Afghan resistance out of those caves and tunnels. And it's going to take more than laser-guided bombs for the U.S. to succeed where the Soviet Union failed.
Are you searching any of the caves?
We've got rewards out and have encouraged a number of teams of Afghan people to earn some quick money and go in and find those folks. Big rewards.
This is the $5 million.
Well, it's $25 million.
$25 million.
You bet, for certain people.
And then there is Mullah Omar, the supreme leader of the Taliban and chief protector of bin Laden. He's not on the FBI's most wanted list, but he is on Rumsfeld's.
Mullah Omar. He is, as far as I know, not indicted. But you want him.
You bet.
Dead or alive.
You bet.
A Predator reconnaissance drone armed with anti-tank missiles, operated by the CIA, and capable of taking high-resolution video like this, has been tracking Omar since the first night of the war. The Predator has spotted Omar's personal SUV, even taken a picture of the license plate, even fired on his motorcade. So far, Omar has escaped, but a lot of other senior leaders of both the Taliban and bin Laden's al-Qaeda network have not.
It's quite a few that have been killed or injured. I know there's one right now that is trying to get out of the country because his legs were badly damaged in an attack, a senior official. But we have had good luck in finding these folks and putting weapons on them.
The badly damaged legs belong to a senior official in a humanitarian organization the U.S. believes is a front company funneling money, weapons, and fighters to bin Laden. And last week, that CIA Predator spotted some of the leaders of al-Qaeda gathering for a meeting in a building south of Kabul. Navy jets attacked it, and then when survivors started crawling out of the rubble, the Predator fired its missiles. The CIA now believes about 50 senior members of al-Qaeda were killed, including Mohammed Atef, bin Laden's top military commander and architect of the September 11th attacks.
Now, you have intelligence reports that Atef is dead. The Taliban says Atef is dead, but you don't know.
Do I have DNA on Atef? No.
So do you need DNA? Because if I were Osama bin Laden, at some point I think I'd want you to think I was dead.
Well, you know, you make do the best you can in life, and what we'll do is we'll keep pursuing these folks and finding them and trying to stop them from committing terrorist acts that kill thousands of people. And we'll chase them and root them out wherever they are.
One way of rooting them out is with 5,000-pound bunker buster bombs. Another is by putting American commandos on the ground to set up ambushes.
And they have, in some cases, parachuted in some cases, helicoptered in. They make judgments as to the flow of traffic on major highways. They have interdicted roads in ways that brought them in contact with people that we didn't want going certain places.
Well, let me stop you there. Describe that, interdicted.
Well, if you interdict a road and some Taliban or Al-Qaeda come traipsing down it and they're not inclined to surrender, then you do something about it.
But are they out there on the road stopping?
They have set up roadblocks.
And then when the Taliban come up, the shooting starts?
I would guess it does.
Running a war is a demanding job, which starts at the crack of dawn and runs well into the night. If you're wondering whether a 69-year-old man can stand the pace, well, he's not.
Do you have any doubts that at 69 you're up to the job?
No, not at all.
Those are 13, 14-hour days.
Well, I work at home when I get home also, and frequently telephone calls and problems that come up, plus I bring a briefcase, so. I enjoy work. I don't feel put upon at all.
Well, I have it on good authority that just before you came in here, you were pumping iron in your office. Is that true?
It was true. Modestly doing it, just some dumbbells while I had to stand and listen to somebody talk.
2 weeks ago, Rumsfeld left Washington on a Friday, held meetings in Russia, Tajikistan, Uzbekistan, Pakistan, and India, much of the time flying cargo class on an Air Force transport. Late Monday night, he flew back to Washington, and Tuesday night, he was the featured speaker at a black-tie gathering of national security hawks.
I don't know how you've managed to stay upright this long, but we will not require you to.
Bert told me you've had about 4 hours sleep in 4 days.
Yeah,
so.
that's really been going.
The military commander of the war is General Tommy Franks, whom Rumsfeld meets or talks with on the phone at least twice a day. Sometimes they face the press together, but it is Rumsfeld who has become the voice of the war.
It's not a war we asked for. We're acting in self-defense. And it seems to me it's useful from time to time to re-emphasize that.
Before every press conference, his press secretary, Victoria Clark, gives him a quick run-through of what to expect.
It's short and simple. The main line of question is the status of the war. How are things going? Are all these reports we're hearing true? What can you tell us? Has Kabul fallen? Has Herat fallen? Which ones, they want a hard and fast characterization.
I just talked to General Franks. Have you talked to him?
I have not. No, I talked to him after our meeting, but not before. So
Yeah, I just got off the phone with him.
You have fresher stuff than I do then.
From the beginning, Rumsfeld used his press conferences to warn that a few pinpoint strikes by precision-guided weapons wouldn't win this war.
Mr. Secretary, the skipper of the Enterprise yesterday used the phrase cleanup mode to describe the state of the airstrikes, sort of suggesting that they're almost wrapped up. You seem to be suggesting they could go on for a while longer than you expected at the beginning.
Go with me.
And when was the last time you saw a senior government official think this long before answering, or not answering, a question?
Do you have evidence of state support for this attack?
I think I'll leave that to the Department of Justice.
If I could have a preliminary question, that was the longest pregnant pause I think I've ever witnessed.
Sometimes I go longer.
I knew it.
I'm old-fashioned. I like to engage my brain before my mouth.
Well, you know, you've put the thrill back in the press conference because nobody knows what you're going to say in response to these questions that get asked.
I just say the truth. I say what I think.
Maybe that's what's so different.
Rumsfeld's briefings have earned him the ultimate cultural cachet, the opening skit on Saturday Night Live.
Yes.
Today also marks the beginning of the Muslim holy month of Ramadan. Does the U.S. plan on suspending its bombing campaign during this period?
Do we plan Do we plan to cease bombing during Ramadan? I suppose my answer to that would be I'm not going to tell you.
But Rumsfeld doesn't seem to care about pop culture. His staff says that before this year, the last movie he saw was One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
It was 1975, Mr. Secretary.
Oh, I know I've seen something since then.
Yeah.
I'm sure I have. My wife likes to go, and every once in a while I go with her. But if I go, I always take a book in case I don't like it. Then I can go out and read the book.
You don't sound like a consumer of American culture.
That's what she says.
Actually, Rumsfeld is part of American culture. That's President Eisenhower campaigning for a short-haired Rumsfeld when he first ran for Congress.
Is that you running for...
Yeah, for Congress back in 1962.
You still got your military haircut there.
Yeah.
Was that just after you were out of the Navy? Or?
Yes, I was out in 57, and I was running in 61 and 2.
Then he joined the Nixon administration and later became Chief of Staff for President Ford, a job he passed on to his protege, Dick Cheney.
Mr. Cheney taking over for you already? Are you lame duck?
On an acting basis, I'm still involved to some extent, but I've been busy up in the Senate for the most part.
Mr. Rumsfeld, there are a lot of people saying...
I thought this was a photo.
Yeah.
I want to ask you a couple questions. Then all of a sudden you come out with those deep tones, like you're on camera.
That's when Rumsfeld became Secretary of Defense the first time. In 1975, he was the youngest Secretary of Defense ever. If he stays in office for one more year this time round, he will become the oldest ever.
You know, you may be the only member of the War Cabinet old enough to remember Pearl Harbor.
I do remember it.
You remember where you were?
Oh, you bet. It was a jarring thing because I can remember seeing my parents and the radio. We didn't have television back in those days, of course, and the radio was on constantly. And it was just such a shock to think that our country had been attacked.
And then this.
Yeah.
Was it a greater shock to that 9-year-old boy or to the 69-year-old Secretary of Defense?
I think they'll both be memorable.